Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. A U.S.-owned TikTok could be coming our way. Donald Trump signing an order for a proposed deal for American investors to buy the app. Crazy dancers and influencers included. Eamon Javers in Washington.
You know, you wonder if these shareholders who are personal friends and political allies of the president are getting an incredible deal here.
And the president says China's Xi is on board. Eunice Yoon from Beijing.
TikTok, ByteDance, they're not really that important as companies to China's economy.
Speaking of TikTok, the clock is ticking on Capitol Hill. A government shutdown looms. But Senator Ron Johnson has a plan to avert this one and all those that come after.
These are politicians playing games with people's lives. It is ridiculous. End that.
Then succeed with outsized creativity, says ad man Andrew Robertson.
Predictability of results, operational excellence, executional brilliance, process compliance, all of those things suppress creativity rather than unlock it.
Are there bad ideas?
There are bad ideas, and you want as many of them as you can get.
Plus, the first indictment of a former FBI director in U.S. history. And the president also announcing new tariffs hitting pharmaceuticals, heavy trucks, kitchen cabinets, and furniture. But is Wall Street watching?
Can you imagine the criticism if, let's say, stocks were down 10 or 20% instead of at new highs?
A busy news day to end the week. It's Friday, September 26th. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue it, please.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick along with Joe Kernen. Andrew is out today. Joe and I, once again, mind meld, dressing with the same color. We never talk about this.
40 miles away. You're 40 miles away, and you get up like at least a couple hours later than I get up.
Oh,
typically.
I do not. I get up about 15 minutes later than you.
And it's not just orange. It's like a cream. It's like a cream. Yeah, exactly. It's like a creamsicle orange.
It's some cantaloupe.
Which is weird. I saw it and I went, whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah. President Trump now threatening pharmaceutical industry with some new tariffs. This was done in a post on Truth Social. Mr. Trump wrote, "The U.S. will impose a 100% tariff on any branded or patented pharmaceutical product entering the country starting October 1st. But he said companies building drug manufacturing plants in the U.S. will be exempted. That includes companies that have just started construction on new facilities. Shares of Asian and European drug makers without U.S. manufacturing operations getting hit on this news. CNBC has reached out to major drug makers for comment, but has not received a response.
Really? They're not all clamoring to get on the record with this at this point?
It's early. Several big pharma companies, do you even notice? I do. It is early. Some companies have recently announced plans to build in the U.S., including AbbVie, Amgen, Merck, Eli Lilly, GSK, and Johnson & Johnson.
You know, what's interesting about this is how the administration is trying to do so many things, really change the entire way we operate, and sometimes those forces kind of bump up against each other. You want to see more made in America, you want to see more manufacturing here, you want to see more jobs here, but at the same time, the administration has been very upfront about how they want to get pharmaceutical prices lower, how they want to get housing prices lower. These particular tariffs on drug prices that right now most are manufactured elsewhere, it is a good I guess loophole incentive that if you are starting to build already, you'll be exempt from some of those things. But if you want to get drug prices down, if you want to get housing prices down, it's hard to do that while you continue to hand out tariffs, not only on pharmaceuticals, but on things like cabinets that go into housing. You can get mortgage prices down potentially. Maybe the Fed can do that. Maybe they can't if they can't control the long end. But all of the components that go into that, whether that be lumber, whether that be any of the many prices that have gone up, home builders will tell you their pricing has gone up substantially from not just goods that are there, but also what they have to pay people for labor.
I sometimes wonder
immigration coming in.
Whether the all of the worst case scenarios haven't come to pass, and I think that might embolden President Trump to think, not that he's invincible, but that for example, so he sees furniture coming in. Someone's dumping furniture. immediately, you're going to read this next story. All right, I'm not going to 100%. And some of it seems like it's impulsive. And, I don't know. I think he can see something one day, and the very next day you could almost see terror. But at this point, 3.8% GDP. I saw what Scott Bessent was saying, that this is going to be like the first term.
Yep.
Strong GDP growth, low inflation because of productivity, wage gains for low-income workers. I guess small business confidence is at 2-year highs. We've got to have Treasury Secretary on again because he always makes a good case. But there are times where even I am like surprised at how well things are going because
the market has shook off all of this.
I know. I see stuff on Twitter. People saying, "How are you going to explain the old boy? You're going to be." And I don't want to answer anyone anymore. But I almost feel like saying, of all the things you've been warning about, what has happened? But yet you're still doing it. You're still Chicken Little. The sky is still. Maybe is it all building up for one big mess? I don't know.
My guess would be that the administration would pivot, that the president would pivot if he did see a big collapse in things. He did in April when tariffs.
Can you imagine the criticism if, let's say, stocks were down 10 or 20% instead of at new highs?
Completely.
And what is it? It may be the start of something. What is this, 4 straight days or something?
We've been down 3 sessions in a row. But again, we're less than 2% from all-time highs.
Exactly.
All right, President Trump also posting last night on Truth Social that he plans to impose a 25% tariff on imported heavy trucks. That is set to begin October 1st. That's next week. He said the move is to protect U.S. manufacturers from unfair outside competition and address national security concerns as well. Shares of PACCAR, which makes Peterbilt and Kenworth trucks, gained after hours. You can see that stock is up by about 5.25%. And then Daimler Trucks, which makes Freightliner, Western Star, and Mercedes trucks, is falling in overseas trading. That stock is off by 3.33%.
Funny, Volvo. I guess that's here. The White House reportedly considering a new plan. This one meant to boost domestic computer chip manufacturing. You could see U.S. semiconductor makers hit with tariffs if that were to happen. The Wall Street Journal says the Trump administration wants U.S. companies to manufacture the same number of chips domestically as their customers import from overseas. Those falling short would face financial penalties. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is said to have talked with chip industry executives about that idea, which is kind of a novel idea as well.
Yeah. They're on the same vein, though, right? Right along with the HB1 visas, which is the labor side of kind of trying to protect American jobs, too.
Yeah.
Former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted in connection with the government's investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. That indictment includes 2 counts, making a false statement and obstruction of congressional proceeding. Comey could face 5 years in prison if he is convicted. The charges came days after President Trump appeared to urge Attorney General Pam Bondi to prosecute Comey and other perceived political adversaries. The statute of limitations for charging was set to expire early next week. On Truth Social, President Trump celebrated the indictment, calling Comey one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to. In a video posted on Instagram, Comey denied the charges, saying, "My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way."
And it's a chicken-egg thing. It's either, they needed a grand jury to look at the evidence.
The grand jury turned aside a third charge that it would not.
But it didn't turn down those, and they vote, and they're, even if the DOJ brings something, the grand jury has to decide on the indictment. Mm-hmm. So when Trump last week or whenever it was said, "What's taking so long?" Is it the old Russian saying, "Give me a man and I'll show you a crime," or was Trump convinced all along these guys have done, some of them guys, gals too, have done egregious things? Where are the charges? So, and I'll, in this case, and some others, I would almost give the benefit of the doubt. And I know people that'll get up in arms because they're sure that this is lawfare and this is targeting his enemies and retribution. But some of it was egregious enough.
He kind of said it was.
Well, not exactly. Retribution for things that they did wrong. For things that they did wrong, and they deserve retribution. Yeah, if they didn't do anything, they wouldn't be anything to bring charges against. I love the AP. Here's
Peter,
I'm going to read this to you. The AP, because I read this yesterday. I was going to tweet it out, but I gave up. So AP, I think AP is like one of the worst. But Trump has for years derided the investigation as a hoax and a witch hunt, and they're still going with it, despite multiple government reviews showing that Moscow interfered on behalf of the Republicans' campaign. They're still with he's Putin's guy, and they're never going to let that. So they're
These
saying,
charges
yeah,
are related
Mueller
to
found
leaking.
absolutely nothing, basically.
But these charges are related to leaking and whether.
But it all hit, but it was all part of
whether he lied
Hillary's
to Congress.
Operation Crossfire, and Comey knew at certain times he was either not including things that would have made that investigation seem ridiculous, or he was including things that were suspect. We'll see what happens with Comey. But
we don't know the details of the case. It's got to go through the court system.
See all the
Peter Navarro was here last week talking about how he thinks lawfare was used against him and that it should be used
Well, that's the other thing.
the others
Yeah.
as well.
He's saying people that use lawfare against him need to be held accountable. And that's what I think that's what Trump's press secretary says every single time. This is not retribution. It's people being held accountable for illegal things that they did. So
We'll see how it plays out in the court system. As you mentioned, it was grand jury.
Did you see all the?
I
saw a lot of pictures of Adam Schiff yesterday in prison. That's people in Bolton. They say Bolton could be
on his list.
Bolton is interesting because, and Comey, the statute of limitations on these charges.
It was about to expire,
week.
right?
For Bolton, they supposedly think if they could put together a better case 6 months from now, but this earlier case might be to appease President Trump to do something now, but it's
also
the
the
case
statute
is
of
not so
limitations,
strong.
right.
I don't know if the Bolton is it. I didn't.
I don't know about Bolton.
Yeah, right.
Tease will be next.
Coming up, the president has okayed a proposed deal for the sale of TikTok's U.S. business, keeping hope alive that the popular social media app will remain available in the U.S. Our Eamon Javers in Washington on the executive order.
There's a couple mysteries that still remain here that we don't know the answers to.
And Eunice Yoon in Beijing watching TikTok's current owner and controller of the algorithm.
At the end of the day, China could just be using this as a way to lord over the Trump administration in broader negotiations.
Plus, the government funding fight continues, but Wisconsin Republican Ron Johnson says he has a plan to end shutdowns forever.
If we take the drama, if we take all the partisanship out of just funding government, just have it continue, maybe we'll do some appropriation reforms, some budget reforms, like let's go to 2-year budgets.
Welcome back to Squawk Pod from CNBC, today with Joe Kernen and Becky Quick. And the topic of the day, TikTok.
So this is interesting because I had a very good talk with President Xi. A lot of respect for him. Hopefully he has a lot of respect for me too. And we talked about TikTok and other things, but we talked about TikTok and he gave us the go-ahead. It's run by American investors and American companies. Great ones, great investors, the biggest. You don't get bigger, I don't imagine. I know Michael Dell's involved and Rupert Murdoch's involved and a lot of, let's see, we have probably 4 or 5 absolutely world-class investors that love the country and they made a lot of money with the country.
It's a blue chip group of investors and we'll be announcing more about who exactly is involved in the deal in the days to come.
Oracle's playing a very big part.
Here's Joe.
President Trump signing an executive order meant to keep TikTok running in the United States. Vice President J.D. Vance says the deal values TikTok's U.S. business at $14 billion. And under the terms, a new joint venture company will oversee TikTok in America, with China-based ByteDance retaining less than a 20% stake. But there's been no indication yet that the Chinese government has made the legal changes with the algo and all that necessary for a deal to go through. Joining us is our own Eamon Javers and Eunice Yoon in Beijing. I hope you guys disagree on exactly what's happening. We want to see like a Santelli-Leisman thing happen here. Is that any way that can happen, Eamon?
I don't think so. Based on what Eunice has been saying on conference calls, I think we have a similar view of where we are, but we'll see.
Okay, go ahead, Eamon.
Well, look, I mean, I would start with this. I mean, there's a couple mysteries that still remain here that we don't know the answers to. One is, who are all the investors in this deal on the U.S. side? We've gotten some names. David Faber reported out a couple of new names yesterday. So we do have a sense of who some of the big kahunas in this are, including, of course, Oracle, which is going to be the trusted security partner. But we don't know all the investors here, and that's a big mystery. And the second big mystery, I think, that people are going to focus on this morning is J.D. Vance giving us this $14 billion valuation for TikTok US. How did they come up with that number? I think is going to be interesting to see the math behind it if we ever get those documents, because there's some questions about what this entity is worth and how much these investors are going to be paying to get that value. It's a huge company with a huge media footprint in the United States, and it will have not quite a monopoly on short form video online in the US, but the most valuable property in terms of social media perhaps in the United States. And to come in at only $14 billion, you wonder if these shareholders who are personal friends and political allies of the president are getting an incredible deal here.
And Eunice, were you surprised at President Xi sort of abandoning a long-held position on that algo, and then we tied some of the NVIDIA threats and the monopoly threats, we tied that to trying to appease people in China that, okay, I may be doing this, giving in on TikTok, but but I'm going to be tough on NVIDIA. Is that true? And we don't even trust that she's ready to give up the algo. Is that a fact?
To answer your question, I wasn't surprised that TikTok would be put on the table, because from a strategic standpoint, TikTok, ByteDance, they're not really that important as companies to China's economy and to President Xi's overall national ambition to become a big technology leader and leader in the world. But in terms of the mysteries that Eamon was bringing up, another one, of course, is still that we don't have any confirmation from Beijing that they're okay with letting go this algo. President Xi, and in the official Chinese summary, President Xi did not, at least they say, they did not reference President Xi approving of this deal going through. And then I just wanted to read you the Foreign Ministry statement today, because it repeats the same points that the Chinese government have been saying, that the Chinese government respects the will of enterprises and is happy to see enterprises doing business negotiations on the basis of market rules and reaching a solution that meets China's laws and regulations and balances interests. We hope that the United States will provide an open, fair, and non-discriminatory business environment for Chinese enterprises to invest in the United States. So again, not being direct, instead using very vague language.
Eamon,
there's a lot of that.
Go ahead. What do you know?
That vague language.
Yeah, what do you know about whether is it as it appears, or because I think it's too good to be true sometimes, and I never trust China really on anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair dose of skepticism, Joe, to look at this and say, I mean, the president has said several times that Xi Jinping has approved this deal, but we've seen nothing forthcoming from the Chinese side that that's actually the case. And yesterday, I think a lot of folks saw that the White House was saying, we're going to have a signing on TikTok. A lot of folks thought that was going to be, signing the deal, right? But in the room yesterday, there was no buyer. There were no representatives of the U.S. investors, and there was no seller, right? So there was nobody from ByteDance or from China to say, yes, we're actually selling this thing. So if you don't have a buyer and a seller, you don't have a deal.
Right, and the executive order getting rid of the congressional bill and then law that was signed in by the former president, you would think gives some leverage, I would think, Eunice, to China. Just the idea that, okay, we've already undone the law. We don't seem to have all the details kind of in order yet.
Yeah, I mean, everything is, it's not very clear at all. I think in terms of next steps, from a technical perspective, the Commerce Ministry has already said that they are conducting technical reviews And then after that, not after that, but their technical reviews are in line with their revised regulations for export control. So these were changed in 2020 to include two technologies that many people believed were related to TikTok. Immediately after they did that, Xinhua News Agency had said that because of this change in the rule, that TikTok, if it was going to do anything with the U.S., would have to obtain a license. So now, because it was categorized as an item that is restricted but not prohibited, people here expect that the Commerce Ministry is going to go through all these rigmaroles and then eventually, in theory, would issue some sort of license. But again, we don't know, because at the end of the day, China could just be using this as a way to lord over the Trump administration in broader negotiations.
Okay. Eamon, I guess we got to go. Eunice, thank you. You know, Eamon, you're going to probably tweet out weekend later today. I don't know what time you're going to do that. I always wait for that because I don't really start my
much
weekend.
later today, but yeah.
I don't start to. When you tweet out weekend, do you then just go immediately to TikTok and just stay on there for Friday nights, all day? Is that how you entertain yourself?
I go straight to the beer fridge in the garage.
You can do that while you're looking at TikTok, couldn't you?
I guess you can. But you know,
how
if you're
often are you on?
I like to stay focused.
How often are you on TikTok, Eamon? Honestly, how often are you?
I actually don't. I do not have TikTok on my phone because of the security risks around the Chinese app.
Oh yeah, me too.
That's why I do it too, honestly.
Just 4 days left until government funding runs out, not for the first time. But the feeling in Washington is that this time is different. We could be headed to the first full shutdown in about a dozen years. This could delay the release of government data, slow down ports, impact funding for small businesses, shut down national parks and monuments. House Republicans passed a so-called clean continuing resolution to fund operations through November 21st. This did not pass the Senate due to a block by Democrats, who are holding firm on a few policy issues, including permanently extending premium tax subsidies dating from the Affordable Care Act, which you probably know as Obamacare. Yesterday, on our podcast, New Hampshire Democrat Jeanne Shaheen laid out the stakes.
It's in everybody's interest to keep the government open and to make sure that people don't lose their health insurance. And when you have the president saying to the Republican leadership in Congress, don't talk to the Democrats, and then canceling the meeting with the Democrats, and Senator Thune saying he's not going to sit down and talk, that isn't conducive to getting a resolution.
Today, we heard from Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson, who has lived through 3 government shutdowns in office, and he says he doesn't want to do it anymore. I'll hand things back here to Joe Kernen with the senator.
Senator, it's good to see you. I don't know before that guy wrote that book, A Perfect Storm, I don't know what we used to use, but we do use it now, and there are some people that think we're looking at something close to that when you listen to Schumer or listen to Senator Schumer or listen to Democrats, combined with where the Republicans stand on things. Maybe this is the time it really does happen. Are you starting to think that?
Well, good morning, Joe. Well, there's no reason for any kind of turmoil whatsoever. I've got a very simple bill, Eliminate Shutdowns Act. And if you haven't passed an appropriation for either all of government or a particular department, you just continue 14-day continuing appropriations, and you fund that agency or that department or that program at last year's level. You get rid of all the drama. I passed a similar bill out of my committee back in 2019. It gets rid of all the fiscal cliffs. It allows Congress to go ahead and pass appropriation bills one at a time, where you can find agreement, where there's disagreement. Again, you don't shut down government. You just continue to fund that thing, 14-day rolling continuing appropriations. This is absurd. I come from the private sector. The dysfunction in Congress is profound, is grotesque. And let's face it, with Chuck Schumer demanding, this is what their opening demand is in their negotiation. We'll give you a 4-week continuing resolution, 4 weeks. And all we're asking for is an extra $1.5 trillion worth of spending over the next 10 years. It is absurd. It certainly indicates that they want to roll the dice, I guess. So they want to gamble with the American economy and with people's lives by shutting down the government. Again, the House has passed a continuing resolution. Again, doesn't have additional spending. There's, they always call anomalies. It's not a completely clean CR, but that's an appropriate thing to do. But what we should do is pass the Eliminate Shutdowns Act, and we get rid of shutdowns for all time. This is unbelievably simple. There's no reason we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, too simple. It makes too much sense. It's not going to happen right away. Maybe someday, right, Senator? But let's say that it doesn't happen in time for this particular instance. In the $1.5 trillion, so I asked Senator Shaheen yesterday, well, what is in there? And she just wanted to talk about negotiating and ACA credits. And there's a wide sort of a continuum. There's people that want $1.5 trillion, and there's people like you. I don't think you want anything, not even ACA, right? But then there's some Republicans in here that are ready to do some ACA credits because of their constituents. So it's strange. But does it end up with a shutdown, in your view, this time?
No. Again, what I would like is I'd like to return to a reasonable pre-pandemic level of spending. But that's not what I'm asking here. I'm saying, okay, this is what we're spending. We're spending about $7 trillion this year. Now, we're only talking about 25% of the budget, which is the discretionary spending. But I'm willing to say let's just keep spending that level until we can work things out. Let's not shut anything down. Let's not disrupt people's lives. And by the way, the beauty of that is now members of both the House and the Senate Appropriations Committee, they can keep working on these things. Again, it just makes so much sense. And I think this might be the moment where we can pass something like this because, again, when Democrats are demanding $1.5 trillion of spending, my guess is we probably will shut the government down. We always come to some accommodation later on. Last year, it took us 6 months to finally fund this fiscal year. 6 months. Since I've been in Congress, we've had 3 shutdowns. We've had 55 continuing resolutions, 55. We've had, I think, 12 either increases or suspensions of the debt ceiling. We've gone from $14 trillion to $37 trillion. Obviously out of control. It's rare we ever pass any appropriation bill prior to the end of the fiscal year. So let's just admit that we're not capable of doing that. The other thing I suggest in my op-ed is let's do some budgetary reforms. Again, if we take the drama, if we take all the partisanship out of just funding government, just have it continue, maybe we'll do some appropriation reforms, some budget reforms, like let's go to 2-year budgets. Then we only have to pass 6 appropriation bills a year. The other bills that the other departments were not appropriating, we can do oversight on. Doesn't that make a lot of sense? By the way, there's a lot of bipartisan support for that. So if we can get rid of the partisanship around these shutdowns, let's face it, it's just these are politicians playing games with people's lives. It is ridiculous. End that. Eliminate Shutdowns Act, a very simple bill, 14-day continuing appropriations. All the drama's gone. Now we can get back to work.
The last time, we did this not too long ago, and a lot of Republicans were sort of looking for more cost cuts than what we got. And they were saying sort of the same thing. We're not going to, unless we have more cost cuts, we're not going to go along with this and we'll shut down the government. So does either side really want to take away the leverage that gives a party, when one's in power and then it shifts, and then when the other one's in power, the other party seems to do the same thing? You weren't really one of those people, were you? You were sort of holding out for a while, were you not, if we didn't get more cuts?
Sure. When you have these cliffs, you want to get some kind of, result, you'll use that kind of leverage. I'm saying let's get rid of that leverage.
So you're willing to do it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, I've been willing to do this since I passed this bill as committee chairman, the Preventing Government Shutdown Act, which, it has some measures in that create additional cliffs. I want to get rid of all that. It's just like, listen, if you can't get your act together, you're going to continue to be dysfunctional. We'll just keep funding at last year's levels. So now, that does create some pressure. If people want to spend more money, they're going to want to get together. And that's what's always happening. When you have these cliffs, when you say, we'll do a continuing resolution until right before Christmas, what ends up happening is eventually the big spenders, the uniparty, come together. That's why we've gone from $14 trillion to $37 trillion in debt. It's clearly out of control. So again, there's really no advantage to this. Just we'll keep funding at last year levels. If the big spenders want to get together and spend more, they'll do it. They just don't have to, again, disrupt people's lives or shut down any department of government.
Hey, Senator, the Democrats argue that some of the provisions in the big beautiful bill, or whatever it's called now, in terms of some health care cuts, that certain people are being affected that need help, and it obviously rings true with some Republicans, because we're told that maybe there's 7, 8, 9 Republicans that have similar concerns about people not being able to afford health insurance or health care in their states. And so they sort of have some empathy for what Senator Shaheen is proposing. If that, you're definitely not even there for the ACA credits. What do you tell them? What do you tell them to tell their constituents that can't afford health care?
First of all, what they're talking about now is the ACA subsidies, the temporary COVID ACA subsidies. Remember, the reason why insurance is so expensive for the individual market is because of the faulty design of Obamacare. Obamacare is causing those 20 million people on the individual markets to pay a whole lot more. So basically what we did is we took away any kind of participation in those Obamacare premiums from millions of people, which has led to massive fraud. You've probably got about 12 million people on those ACA exchanges that never even use health care. Best estimate is maybe half don't even realize they're signed up for health care, because you have unscrupulous agents and brokers who are just signing people up because all you need is a name and a birth date. You sign somebody up, they get the commission, the insurance companies get the taxpayer money, and nobody ever does. So there's tens of billions of dollars of fraud. So anybody who wants to extend these temporary COVID subsidies wants to perpetuate massive fraud, costing the American taxpayer tens of millions of dollars. In terms of Medicaid under the big, beautiful bill, we didn't cut Medicaid. We slowed the growth of spending, also caused by the faulty design of the Medicaid, the Obamacare expansion Medicaid, which pays $9 for every dollar the states spend for a healthy adult. It pays $9. That's led to all kinds of fraud, versus traditional Medicaid for disabled children. For every dollar the state puts in, the federal government kicks in $1.33. So again, Obamacare is the root cause of all these problems. It is skyrocketing healthcare costs, insurance costs, and all Democrats want to do is throw more money at it. We want to bring down healthcare costs in a reasonable way.
This was all predicted too before Obamacare passed it, but you said that only, it'll be really expensive just to get, any care at all at the very it does cover a lot of people, and it just, to the other side, when you talk like that, Senator, it sounds like always just blaming everything on Obamacare, but there were serious issues that were predicted at the time, and here
Yes.
we are. They're coming home to roost.
And it's easy to explain. So Obamacare forced all the cost of covering people with pre-existing conditions to the very small percentage of people, less than 10% of people on the individual exchange, as opposed to using high-risk pools, which were in existence. They worked. They could have been tweaked. We could have covered people with pre-existing conditions without doubling, tripling, quadrupling the cost of health insurance for individuals. Again, so Obamacare is what has driven up the cost of individuals, for individuals. So then the solution is, well, let's give more subsidies. Let's increase the amount, decrease the amount that people pay. So again, under COVID, people on Obamacare exchange, about 12 million, never had to even pay a dime in premiums. So they want to continue that, but that has led to massive fraud. Tens of billions of dollars, again, being paid right to the insurance companies where people don't even utilize the insurance. I don't want to perpetuate that. I don't think the American taxpayer should be perpetuating that level of fraud. That's what Democrats want to do. And unfortunately, a few of my Republican colleagues are afraid of the lies. Again, they're afraid that all the lies, distortions told by Democrats will come back and hurt them. And it might. Again, politics is a nasty game.
No, it will. It will. Grandma's going off a cliff again. We hear that every 4 years. Anyway, Senator, appreciate your time. I wanted to have you on today because I wanted to explain in more detail, and you just did that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great morning.
Up next on Squawk Pod, capturing creativity from the advertising vet Andrew Robertson. He worked on key campaigns with M&M's, AT&T, and Snickers. You're Not You When You're Hungry was his. He's all about taking risks, but being smart about it.
Either everybody's saying, let's be bold, which isn't always smart, and it's hard, or pursuing certainty. And the inevitable result of the pursuit of certainty is the average.
This is Squawk Pod.
Stand Joe by in 3, 2, 1. His mic, cue.
You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I'm Joe Kernen along with Becky Quick.
The most competitive companies may be the most creative ones. At least that's the idea from veteran advertising leader Andrew Robertson, the chairman of BBDO Worldwide. His new book is called The Creative Shift: How to Power Up Your Organization by Making Space for New Ideas. In the book, he shares lessons from his 40-plus years in the advertising industry. And Andrew, it's great to see you on set.
Wonderful to be here.
Congratulations on the book, first of all.
Thank you. Thanks.
The creative shift. You are somebody who has worked in a creative industry, but what you've taken away from it is that every organization, every industry needs to be looking at ways to unleash creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I make a distinction between innovation, which everybody talks about and should do, where I think you're constantly improving existing solutions, and that helps your business in percentages, and genuine creations, where you create a new product, you create a new service, you create a new process, a new route to market, where the impact is measured in orders of magnitude. And to do that, you need creativity. And what I've observed over, as you kindly say, 4 decades, a long time. I'm an old guy. What I've observed with lots
You're
of clients...
You're a wise man, that means.
That's a good one.
Right.
Wizened, anyway.
Lots of clients in lots and lots of different verticals is they grapple with unlocking creativity inside their organization.
Because bureaucracy slows things down?
Well, I mean, bureaucracy is a harsh word, but the reality is that the things that make businesses really good businesses, predictability of results, operational excellence, executional brilliance, process compliance, all of those things suppress creativity rather than unlock it. And my argument is not that these companies should change into something else, because I don't want them to. They're good at what they do because they do it that way, but that they should use the same discipline to engineer the conditions that allow them to unlock the creativity of their people when and where they need it. And that's kind of the essence of the shift that I'm arguing for.
Let's talk about some stories, because I think a lot of times we learn through stories. You described one situation, I think it was a bank in Australia, where you had a very kind of out there ad campaign. And you went to the bank CEO and were surprised by his answer.
Well, yeah, it was a great aha moment for me, actually, because...
what was the campaign?
Campaign was for NAB, National Australia Bank. And what we'd discovered was that consumers thought all 4 banks were in cahoots with each other. Imagine that.
What is this, post-financial crisis?
Yeah, 2012. Yeah. And despite the fact that NAB had launched lots of great new products and services, nobody would listen to them because they couldn't get past that first hurdle. So we came up with this campaign called The Big Breakup, where NAB broke up with the other 3 banks on Valentine's Day. It was very funny. It was like, letters saying, it's not us, it's you. We're fed up with your lying and your cheating. We're going our own way. You're dumped. Hugely successful. And I went to see the CEO of the bank afterwards and said, well, that was really bold of you. And he looked at me and he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, breaking up with the other banks in public, that's a bold thing to do. And he said, you're out of your mind. I'm a banker. I'm not paid to be bold. I'm paid to manage risk. And when your guys came in and showed me this idea and talked about how amazing it would be, I could see it might be, but I didn't know that. What I was able to do was quantify the downside. And when I looked at the downside, I figured we would never lose a retail customer, we wouldn't lose a corporate client. We might, worst case, be laughed at for 6 weeks, but then something else would come along. And on the basis that I could live with the downside, I went ahead. And it was a real aha moment for me, because what I observed when people are evaluating ideas is one of 2 things. Either everybody's saying, let's be bold, which isn't always smart, and it's hard, or pursuing certainty. And the inevitable result of the pursuit of certainty is the average. That's the closer you get to certain, the closer you are to the average. As opposed to genuinely managing risk. We can't quantify the upside, we can guess at it, but the downside you usually can. And it's usually nowhere near as bad as you fear it might be without thinking about it. And so that shift of, when I say to people, don't be bold, think like a banker when you're coming to judge ideas, I think is really important.
All right, let me think about that from advertising campaigns that have run awry. Bud Light, What happened? Did they not think about the potential downside?
They didn't. That's exactly what they didn't do, and that, I think, is a good example of, if you think of the maths of it and you go through it and you say, pick an issue. We're picking an issue where the world is divided neatly into two, where there are people with big megaphones that are going to could make a lot of noise about this. I think that is a classic case of the downside not having been properly quantified. The upside everybody could see in that particular.
That wasn't a 50-50 though.
It was close. That issue. You think it's 2080?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
obviously.
Okay.
From what happened.
Same point.
Yeah.
You're talking more than just about creativity and advertising, though, and I think we should get at that. Like the idea of a company like Amazon being able to get great ideas from further down the ladder is another one of the examples you bring up.
Precisely. I mean, I would say advertising is really important, wouldn't I? Because that's what I do. But I'm talking about ideas that are generated within companies that are transformative. Amazon Prime was the idea for that came from a junior software engineer. Didn't come from a load of people sitting saying, we're responsible for the loyalty program. Junior software engineer came up with that. And they found a way to, even in a company like Amazon, which is so disciplined, so operationally brilliant, has to be, but their people had those ideas. And I think that's what you want to unlock.
Like how did that happen at Amazon?
Honestly, I don't know. The only reason I know that I saw a video on TikTok of Jeff Bezos talking about it, and somebody asked him where the idea for Prime came, and he said a junior software engineer. But I think it's possible to do this if you engineer the conditions, and you don't want it all of the time. AT&T's got a third of the world's data crossing its network today. I don't want some guy saying, I've got an idea how we can make, but every now and again, when you're going to need to design a new service or a new product offering, you really do need it, and your people have the creativity. It's just that the way we all work suppresses it. And one of the biggest things is the expectation that you've got to have a good idea.
I was going to say, are there bad ideas?
There are bad ideas, and you want as many of them as you can get.
Why?
Because the key to it's pure maths. If only one idea in 10 is good, you need 10 ideas. And the expectation that most of us operate on is not that you need 10 ideas, it's that you need one good one.
The problem is you don't want to run amok chasing down, trying to figure out which of the 10 is the good idea or which of the 1,000 is the good idea and spend too much time chasing that down.
Well, if you are disciplined about it, you create a certain amount of time when you're going to generate ideas. And when you're generating, you don't judge. You just generate lots of ideas. And the more you generate, the more likely you are to come up with something that's really good.
Yeah.
Then you have a separate period of time where you judge the ideas that you've generated. All too often what happens in companies and in life is that the generation and judgment conflate, and you're judging as you're developing.
Which means people will not raise their hand for
They
things.
won't.
Yeah.
They won't. Because it's a lot to come up with a good idea. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard.
Right. And if you're really good, maybe you only need 5, 1 out of 5. If
brilliant.
you're really bad, you might need like 100.
100, correct. But nobody really starts with 1.
Be nice to not need 100, though. But that's why some people are talented and succeed much more than other people.
Because they can generate the 100 fast, and that's the mind. And honestly, this is, if you look at kids, there's an amazing bit of research done in the 60s. A guy called George Land did it for NASA, because they wanted to identify their most creative engineers to give them the biggest problem. So he developed a creativity test. And he then used it to track a cohort of kids, because he wanted to answer the question, is creativity
beaten
nature
out of us? Is it beaten out of us over time by the
he wondered
system?
whether you were born with it or you learned it.
Yeah, I also wonder if you get beaten out of
You do.
over time.
At the age 5, 98% tested as genius. Mm-hmm. By the time they were 10, 30%. By the time they're 15, 12%.
Follow the rules. Do what we say. Be a good kid.
Exactly. Yeah. So when I talk about engineering the conditions, it's somehow getting people into a zone where they can behave and think like 5-year-olds.
See, that's what we do, because they've been trying to wrap us for 3 minutes and we haven't.
They have. We've known each other a long time, and I haven't seen you in a while. But just listening to you, I'm thinking, if you ever decided you want a different career, I mean, you could have been cast on Succession as one of the I'm thinking like a villain in jail. You really, yeah. Well, no, if they needed one, with the look, the accent, everything else, Have you ever thought about it? A second? Do you like what you're doing?
Yeah, I like what I'm doing.
Okay. That might be an agent. And would you go
It's
on...
Joe's way of saying you're suave.
Yeah. Would you go on a rehearsal, like where you go in and actually try to get a role?
No, I haven't ever done that. No, I've never done.
Can we talk? We're going to talk about that.
Okay,
I get.
Joe
You
has.
get your commission.
Joe has, and yet he's
They
here.
told me my emotional instrument was clogged. This was a long time. It's still clogged.
No, I think you've gotten over that. Andrew, thank you very much, and congratulations on the book. Again, it's called The Creative Shift. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you guys. Thank you.
And that is Squawk Pod for today and for the week. Happy Friday, all. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. Get the best of our show when you follow us. Follow Squawk Pod wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll meet you right back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.